boy, Mayor.
Never not busy.
It's an honor to be with you, Mayor.
Likewise, brother. It's
You're the
good
man.
to see you in your element.
Yeah, man, this is my world.
Yeah,
You're the man, Mayor. You're the man. Thank you. Thank you, man. It's an honor, man.
It means a
I don't
lot
know
that
how
you're
you
gonna.
do it, Mayor.
I'm good. It means a lot that you could spend some time with us here. Our crew here at the Museum of Graffiti. Our thanks to you for coming in on our launch and doing a beautiful installation in house and also on our community wall outside. We really enjoy that every day. Well, John, you know, there's so much to say about you, and usually I read a bio, but there's a lot to cover with you. So I just want to jump right into it because I think the narrative will play out. First of all, wow, look at this studio you're in.
Yeah, it's a big mess, man. It's destroyed. You know, Mayor, I'm like you. I'm like a historian. So when I was small, I used to always like to look at photos of Francis Bacon's studio or Giacometti's or, you know, Jackson Pollock. You know, the studio was trashed out. So that was always my example. I'm sure you always looked at pictures of studios of other artists. You visit them. And, yeah, this is my world.
Yeah, and it's, you know, one of the things that's interesting, I've seen photographs of you in your studio, and it's interesting, you just blend right into your paintings, into your walls. You are the spirit, you're the embodiment of everything that you create. And what a powerful image. But even as we see you right now, we understand that. We see you in your element, and that the studios where you really work out the toughest ideas and the most fantastical ones, and where you really work it out. In your case, you really slug it out because you got the punching bag there.
Yeah.
But you know, the works that we're looking at and seeing in the background are contemporary. And so what I want to do is take a little like memory lane trip back with you, and you know, talk about your early beginnings as a subway rider in New York City. And you know, your story, I find, is one of the most compelling stories, one of the more compelling stories of this culture, right? Of escaping a really harsh environment in New York, but also a very exciting one during the 80s. But you, like many kids, were trying to find themselves through this community of riding on trains. And what I never learned about you was like how you started, how you got into graffiti.
Oh, I mean, where I grew up in 157th Street is like the birth of graffiti. That's where Norman Mailer's book came out, you know. So I was always surrounded by tags, and I was always surrounded by the spirit of graffiti. So I was attracted to it from a very early age, and then later on, you know, through opportunities, I remember my first piece that I ever seen that I was like amazed by. It was a piece by Tracy 168, and it was uptown in the Bronx. And it was like in this bar, he drew like a cowboy. I still remember it today, and I was like amazed by how someone could do a painting on a gate with a spray can. So, you know, little by little, I just started to like meet other graffiti writers, and then from there, I used to play in the subways. That was my playground, and I used to take the you know, the #1 train to the South Ferry, be on the first car and drive it back. You know, that was my trip, and then I started to ride in the back and started to do motion tags. So that's the way I started, like a toy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you started painting, what were you looking at? What was influencing you, and who was influencing you in that period?
I mean, it was you. I was influenced by you and what you did, man.
Well, I mean, there was so many great
You and
kings.
your crew, man.
Yeah, but there
RT
was so many
Company,
great
you
kings
know?
up in your area.
Oh, in my area, it was mostly like Fats 153 and Japan 1 and Barber 62, and you know, all those, you know, you would see them painting in Central Park, you know, the old school graffiti writers. And And little by little, when I started to take the trains, I started to see like Futura tags and Zephyr tags and Revolt tags and Anks and I was and Quick. I started to see Quick tags over spots and Dondies, and so I was attracted by the tags. Instead of reading the newspaper, I was reading the tags on the trains. You know, it was like every day. You know, those ammo and Terra 161. So yeah, I was attracted by all that.
And what is it about the name? What is it that you found? Because you are just a prolific bomber. What's the psychology
Behind my name?
Behind getting, constantly stamping your name everywhere you could?
I mean, that it just, you know, graffiti is my life. So from bombing, I was like a one-man army, so I didn't really need people. You know, some people bomb with crews, or they have to go to the yards with their boys and stuff. But I was mostly going I was going a lot by myself. So it was just missions, you know. It was a little bit like Sane and Smith. Remember how Sane used to be on a rampage back in the days? And, you know, so it was just like, it was just the way I grew up, just writing my name. It's so strong to me, you know. And,
and you know, we've been looking at these whole cars, end to end, John 156.
Yeah.
You're clearly making a statement. You know, the typography, unlike some of the other writers at the time that were focused on wild style and throw ups, you wanted clear, legible writing. Tell me about this, well, first of all, I want to ask you about 156.
Yeah.
Right? You started 156 crew. Why?
Yeah. I mean, 156, because 156, there was a lot of crews all over my neighborhood. And we would just hang out. We were like, just hang out in the corner. And then we started to go inside the subways. And then from there, we just started to more or less, you know, tag our names and tags 156. And little by little, other people got into the crew, like Rack 7, Kyle, and Omni, and it was just like, it wasn't like RTW. You know, RTW was a different type of setup of crew, and 156, it was just, let's say it was all the rejects of graffiti put together, but they were one-man armies, you know.
Yesterday, I spoke with West, and he spoke highly of you. And one of the things that he mentioned, particularly about being uptown in your area, was the one tunnel, and we were discussing the ball busters. And one of the things that came to mind for me was, one of the reasons we needed a crew was because it was dangerous in New York. It was dangerous to be going into neighborhoods, into tunnels to paint.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, the ball busters were terrorizing everybody, you know. Anytime you go inside the one tunnel, if you would see ball busters, usually you would run away, you know. And, you know, I knew one or two of them, so sometimes I would get over and whatnot. And, you know, me being Dominican, and they were like mostly a Dominican crew, but I wasn't really down with the ball busters, you know. So, yeah, they were terrorizing everybody, the ball busters, but they created style in a way because they had Airborne, they had Tack, they had Rask, and they had that Latin touch. So, you know, the ball busters with FBA, they really revolutionized the lettering styles.
Isn't that like so unusual, right? When we think about graffiti and artists needing crews, right? Needing to evade other writers and cops and work bums. I know of no other art form that has those components, right? That are threatening to the creative process.
Definitely, but that process is what made the style so interesting, as gave us some sort of raw energy that you cannot recreate that in, let's say, the street art scene of today, you know? I mean, they try more or less to have that sort of element in their behind their art, the ones that paint in the street today, but they weren't in the mix at that moment. So that's when let's say the style was being developed, and it developed really fast, you know. It was just like this, bap, bap, bap. Every single 6 months, boom, something else was coming out. A new style was coming out. Somebody else was coming out. So it was just amazing to be part of it and to witness it.
Well, one of the things, yes, that came up with Wes yesterday was that era, that pocket of, you know, the mid 80s to the end of the 90s, where you guys were really hitting hard as kind of an era that was that's sort of forgotten, right? In the lore of graffiti. And as we start thinking about it, we were looking at Wes' work, and I was looking at your work today about how kids inherit this culture and how you give it forward, you play it forward. And what I saw in some of your images, and I'm looking at some of the images of crewmates of yours, of how that operates, right? About how a crew hands down style and techniques and so on. I'm looking at this image of you inside the tunnel with a girl, I think.
Yeah.
Who is she?
It was this girl that I used to work with when I used to work at the Palladium. And she wanted to go to the yards, so I took her to the yards, and we were just bombing, you know?
Wow. Okay. Well, and here we have more pictures of crewmates. I picked up some images from your wonderful book.
Yeah.
And what I like is, again, you're seeing young people at work, right? And it's funny, looking at these photographs, you also tell of the time, you see the fashion.
Yeah.
And I see Ladybug, a writer I'd never heard of.
Yeah, Ladybug, she was from I think the Lower East Side, and she was down, you know, there wasn't too many girls that were down to go to the tunnels and stuff because it was dangerous. But the few that went, they really had a good time, and they were hardcore. Yeah, that's Gnome right there. That's Gnome, little Gnome, who used to be the protege of Case 2, and that's in my house. You know, I had rack all these cans, and you know, my house was like the headquarters of graffiti. I mean, not graffiti, but you know, 156.
Right. I set these 3 pictures up for a reason, right? It gives you an idea. I mean, look at how small he is, right? And how young people were when they started, and you yourself, you guys with the bounty of paint. How did you get that paint?
Oh, it was racking. We were stealing all our paint. You know, my mom's was poor, so I didn't have no money. You know, I'm poor. My parents are mad poor. I mean, they were poor. But so it was just racking, going to different rack spots in Staten Island and Queens and Manhattan. You know, graffiti was just like, it was every single day. So you would rack in the daytime and then paint at night. It was like a drug, or it still is. You know, you had different types of rack spots, like Pearl Paint. Didn't your cousin, he worked at Pearl Paint?
Kel worked at Pearl Paint, and I did as well.
Yeah, you remember the Jamaican guys that used to work there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, they used to give them a little bit of money. And then
that's right, that's the hookup.
Yeah, that was the hookup, Pearl Paint. And then they started to lock it up. Yeah, so then after when they locked it up, man, that's when I started to rack acrylic.
So I'm looking at a picture of you with King Case 2.
Yeah.
And I don't recognize the other writer.
Kyle. That's
Kyle?
Yeah.
Share with us, because I ran into you in I think in the one tunnel with Case. Tell us a story about Case.
Well, Case was amazing, you know. He was amazing and an inspiration. So here you got a guy with one arm and one leg, you know, and he's climbing ladders and stuff like that. And you know, I had different stories. Like I was with him one time in 14th Street, and all of a sudden, you know, there was this guy, you know, he wasn't with us, and he said, "Yo, I'll be right back. I'll be right back." and he just went up to the guy and he robbed him, you know, right in front of us. And then we took the train uptown. And so that was that part of Case I knew. And other parts of Case, you know, when me and him used to go on missions to get high and whatnot. And then there was also the painting side of Case, which was amazing with his computer style, which was revolutionary, and it just the way he twisted the letter, and he was an amazing artist. He did characters that represented the soul that he was carrying inside. It was just like, it was amazing. His lettering and his characters, the way he would do his faces. He was a great artist.
I was also, yeah, I was also surprised that he was still active up until about the mid '80s in the One Tunnel.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he lived right upstairs from the One Tunnel. I think he lived on 144 for 143. So I would be painting downstairs, and he would come down and he would paint, dip and dab a little bit in the paint, and then he would go outside and get some food and some drugs for us. Come back down, we would get high, and you know, it was like a big picnic with Case. Definitely, we had a great times together.
So I'm gonna go through a couple trains, but this one was quite interesting for me, the Baby 137.
Oh yeah, amazing. It was like, you know, I always liked Baby Rock's tag, you know. Baby Rock 137, I think he was like one of the best taggers of the #1 on the one line. So I had the chance to meet him, and when I met him, I was like, yo, I finally meet Baby Rock, because Baby Rock wasn't just a tag, but he was sort of like a legend, you know? Am I right or wrong, man?
Yeah, he was killing the ones. He was up big time. And also, like we were saying before, the Ball Busters had his back, and they did that layup.
Yep, so when I met him, I was like, yo, I'm gonna do a top to bottom of your name, and he was like, yeah, go ahead, do it. So I did the Baby Rock 137, Baby 137 for him, and also did one for Bear. I did one for Bear too, Bear TDS, when he passed away.
John, tell us how long it takes to, tell us about the conditions and the time it took to do something like this, to paint a full train.
I mean, since I was possessed by graffiti, or still am, I would go there on a Friday and come out on a Sunday, you know, and I would just go upstairs to go to McDonald's. You know the McDonald's on 145th Street?
Yep.
In the corner, I would just go upstairs and get some McDonald's and then come back down and keep on, and I would sleep down there. So it was a little bit like my catacomb. It was my catacombs. But then sometimes it would be kind of hot, the ones. So I would go to 175th, or I'll go to the Ghost Yards, and sometimes to the D Yard, but I was mostly uptown, yeah.
John,
oh yeah, you got some amazing trains there, man.
Say that again?
How's that? You got some amazing trains. You got the John and Kyle train.
I wanted to touch. Right. I wanted to share this with everyone because, and it's actually interesting to me to look at you and your background, because I think these trains really, really prepared you for the artist you would become. We see the labor, we see the work, we see the color, the dynamics. Tell me about your partnership with Kyle and the trains you painted, and what was that process between the two of you? The creative process of painting trains?
Well, me and Kyle, we met in like this youth center, you know, and then we were used to, it was on 14th Street or by Chambers Street, and we used to draw on this youth center, and we started to talk, and he was telling me he was from Queens and I was from Manhattan, and, you know, he wanted to paint a train. He wanted to paint trains, and I wanted to do stuff for him because he was an amazing draftman. He can draw his ass off. And so then from there, before that, we started to talk about Lee Quinones and what he had done on trains, you know? You know, Stop the Bomb and those amazing trains that Lee did. It always had a message behind, you know? Lee wasn't just doing, let's say, you know, like burner and then two characters on the side. He was always doing something with messages. And then the thing about also Lee, he did the 10-hole cards. You know, that was like the top of the top. So I said, yo, Kyle, we gotta do something like Lee does. You know, like something with messages and change it up. So that's the way all those trains came between me and Kyle. Was always trying to push the agenda and not stay in the traditional classic graffiti style.
Right. We're looking at the Kyle John with
Yeah.
Uncle Sam skull and the broken chain, the arms with the broken chain, and the soldiers. The Kyle Wars whole car.
Yeah.
Phenomenal whole car. Blew us away when it came out. Speaks to what you're saying. Tell us a bit about the history of this train and how this train came along.
Well, that was during, you know, like say the 80s, and there was a lot of things going on in South Africa that was just sort of like, it was just so stupid, apartheid and the way the whites were treating the Afrikaners there, and also the situation in Central America. And, you know, and Kyle was sort of like, he was very revolutionary, I think. You know, he wasn't taking things sitting down. So he came out with that train, you know, putting Uncle Sam in the middle as sort of like the root of all evil, and then, you know, us as a people breaking the chains of inequality, and then the letters being bones, and we erasing, you know. So it was really what we were living, you know, in the sense that we wanted to change things. We wanted to make a statement. And with Kyle, it was easy work, because Kyle, he was just amazing, you know. He did some of the most beautiful. Sometimes he would spend like hours and hours, 8 hours, just to do one arm or just to do the details. So when you see the train coming out, it was just like bang. It was like a cartoon coming out, or a museum piece coming out of a tunnel.
So let me ask you something. At this point, did you have illustration skills like Kyle? Were you interested in that, or were you truly just interested in just painting, the act of painting?
No, I had no illustration style at all. I could not paint like T-Kid. You know, T-Kid was like master draftman. He can do faces. West was dope, you know. But I was more into the abstraction of it all. Whereas I didn't know I got into the game. I didn't know how to draw characters. And I tried a bit, but when I had seen what you guys had done, I said, give it up, John. You'll never be as good as a Mayor 139 or a Kel or a Kaz 207 or a Dondi. These guys master the letters, you know? So I said, I was a lot influenced by Futura, you know, and Phase 2. And so that kind of pushed me the way, and all the other influences that I had in between, like hang out with Eero and A1. So that pushed me into more of a abstraction form of expression.
Right. And I'm so glad you say that, especially on this image, when you see all these whole cars that were painted, and you look at these backgrounds and you look at the lettering, it really speaks to that, right? These whole cars are incredible. I mean, you guys just went off.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you wouldn't have the right colors or the right, and it was done with Krylons too, mostly Krylons and some Rust-Oleums too. Wow.
And so what does that mean to people, that it was done with that type of paint? What is that compared to today?
I mean, today you got all the caps, and you got the cans with a certain amount of pressure, and so it's easy to have can control. But back then, you didn't have the opportunities to have caps like you have right now, and so you had to have a different not a technique, but you had to have skills to be able to express yourself, you know, because
right, but
it was different painting with Krylon than it is painting with 94 or Montana.
Right. And you started doing some novel things for train riders, right? You started coming in with acrylics and
Oh
trying
yeah.
different processes on the trains. Tell us a little bit about that and how that was how that became a practice for you.
Well, it became out of my situation, you know, like I said before, I used to steal a lot, rack a lot. That was, you know, that was my way of feeding my compulsion. So little by little, I would go to rack spots and they would have locks in the spray can for the spray can section, you know? So I was like, damn, what am I gonna do? So then I would walk around the paint store and acrylics. And, you know, I had the leather bomber with the string, and you know, the string. So I would take like 6 or 10 of them. I would take them all. And then I had all these Lascos in the house. And sometimes I would have more Lasco than I had acrylics. I mean, than spray paint. So then I would take the Lascos to the yard and I would paint with that. I was like, yo, that's all I got. So that's it. So that's how the whole process of painting with acrylic became. It was because the rack spots were, the spray can section had a lock on it.
So at that point, were you, how familiar or interested were you in contemporary art and transitioning from trains to canvas?
Well, you know, I always try to evolve with my style, or not with my style, with my way of thinking and live the times that I'm living. So I used to hang out a lot in Henry's studio back in the day, so I had seen all the books Henry had of all the books, and I kind of hung out, I got a chance to meet a lot of different types of writers, you know, so many of them. I had the chance to go inside so many studios, Knock 167 and Eero Studio, spending nights there. So what happened with me, Mayor, is that like I said before, I had observed Lee, you know, and what Lee had to say, and as an artist, and not just a graffiti writer, and how he was expressing himself, or people like Crash and Days, you know, the way they presented themselves was completely different than, like, let's say, the people in my environment that were just like, yo, I'm gonna fuck this shit up, or I'm gonna just like, you know, it was very limited their way of expressing themselves, and I observed the way Crash was expressing himself. So I took a more personal approach towards my art, and that's how my art evolved from let's say from painting trains to doing canvases. That I had more of a personal thing, something I had to say that was deeper than just like I'm gonna fuck shit up, or I'm gonna bomb, or I'm gonna just do this and that.
Well, one of the things that's interesting in what you just said about fucking shit up and whatnot, you were incredibly prolific. And one of the things that's interesting about this portion of it, like the John throw-ups, right?
Yeah.
And I had never seen this, and it makes so much sense to me. These John throw-ups that kind of just extend out to take up the whole panel so that you could write in them. But this kind of repetition of the throw-up, right? This kind of muscle memory you developed with your name over and over again would become something that, again, would be returning back into your contemporary work. Tell me about you as a bomber, right? As John 1, inside, outside throw-ups.
Oh, that was so much fun, man. That was like, I had so much fun doing that. You know, I was very much influenced by, let's say, Quick RTW, and he would always write little funny sayings in his throw-ups, and he would go over everybody, and of course, you know, the legend himself, Min One, he was like God. He was like the one, you know, he was RTW. He meant everything. Fresh Kids, and you know, he was everything, you know, and Is the Wiz. So it wasn't just like doing burners. For me, what interested me was being part of that element of graffiti, which was bombing and insides, and so that's the way those throw-ups came up to be. That you know, it extended and it went over other people, you know.
Yeah, and interestingly, I mean, you took them to the streets, you know, everywhere you went, and I was impressed at how many gates you painted with your throw up.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I got the chance to paint them in the streets too, and that was a lot of fun too. You know, that was I wasn't really back then. I wasn't really a street bomber. You know, I was mostly a train bomber. I think painting in the streets was for toys. You know. And it was wasting your paint. That's the way I felt, you know. I would wrap my paint to paint in the trains and in the tunnels and not, you know, I would paint in the streets only if I got raided or if, like, you know, I couldn't go to the yard and it was really disappointing.
so
So, yeah.
John, I found this image from 1994 very interesting. It's with you, Sharp.
Yeah, just me and Sharp.
Yeah. The street style.
Yeah, yeah. That was in Italy in Bologna. Me and Sharp, you know, we were road buddies out here, and you know, he was living here for years in Europe, and we were road buddies. There was just a couple of us over here, and we wound up going to Bologna in Italy, and there we did this massive wall. No, it wasn't Bologna, it was in Florence. We were in Florence, excuse me. We were in Florence and we did this massive wall there. It was a lot of fun. And Sharp had the mask, he had that crazy fresh style he still has. And yeah, he did most of it, you know. Yeah, and that's a Rossi that I did in Stalingrad. You know, this legendary like the Hall of Fame of Paris. You know, I did this for my old girlfriend.
This is a great segue, right? Because I want to talk to you about the journey, right? The realization that to be an artist, you wanted to leave America.
Oh yeah, I wanted to leave America for sure. I mean,
yeah,
I wasn't like, you know, New York forever. You know, I was just like, I was tired. You know, and from where I come from, my neighborhood, my environment, you only dream of one thing, is getting out of the hood, you know. I didn't want to stay uptown.
I found this picture from '95 in Paris of you, and I really connected with it. You know, I've said this before, that in some way, I always felt envious that you did what I wish I would have done and left this country and went to Paris for the same reason, that I just wanted to be happy as an artist. Mm-hmm. When you first got to Paris, tell me about what life was like for you as an expat.
I mean, yeah, when I first arrived to Paris, it was 1987. And you know, New York I felt it was dying down, you know. I felt, you know, you had done one of the last trains on the #1 train, that Mayor 139 unfinished. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of the last ones, as a matter of fact, that I saw you, that one of the last times, I think Wes brought this up, on 125th Street, I had the last trains that I did the Kel and the Shy, and I think Case 2 was with me one of those nights.
And it was unfinished.
Oh, the top to bottom, yeah, I got rated, yeah.
Yeah, I had seen that, and then when I seen that, I was like, you know, the #1, you know, and it was finished. Hip hop was finished, the hip hop that I knew. So I was lucky enough to meet Bando and Shu, and they invited me to come to Paris, you know. So I went out there and I started to paint with Bando in Stalingrad, in this famous Hall of Fame in Europe. It was like the European style masters would meet at Stalingrad. And I was amazed, Mayor, by what they were doing in Europe. Because in New York, you know, you had that style which was very aggressive, you know, with a character holding a gun and the arrows, and you know, and here in Europe, you know, they were more poetic in their approach. Like you had Motu doing all these freakadeaky type of characters, you know, influenced by Rand Xerox, and you had Bando. He could compose letters completely differently. And you had Shu, he had that Amsterdam style. So I found myself once again, let's say, in a situation where I witnessed, like, let's say, the birth of graffiti for a second time, or the birth of hip hop in Europe or in France. So that's the way I wanted up here, and I stayed. I was an expat, as you say.
Right. And so given the history of Europe, that's such a rich culture in terms of historic art, but more importantly, modern art, right? These new ideas that were creeping into your work about painting and how we look at art. How was kind of the formal art that which was around you in the periphery? How was that informing you? Because you're going there already with an orthodox style, an unorthodox style. And
yeah,
you
definitely. I mean, when I came out here, I mean, leaving New York, you know, I was just more, you know, I had that battle of, yeah, what you do is vandalism. It'll lead you nowhere. You're wasting your time. Why don't you get a real job? You know, but I believed in what I was doing. So when I came here, let's say to France, people embraced it as an art form. A little bit like, let's say, the jazz musicians that were rejected in the United States and that were embraced in Europe. I think here, as people started to talk my language, whereas, you know, they started to see it as, let's say, art, and look at us as artists and not just vandals. So that helped me grow as an artist, and it helped me start a community and be part of a community of people that appreciate and love this art form for what it is.
And you found a champion and Agnes B.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. She's an interesting figure in all of this. Yeah. Tell us about her.
Well, when I first got here, yeah, I had the chance to meet Agnes B with the BBC, with Jay, Ski, and Ash, and she organized one of the first, like, let's say, graffiti shows here in France, and with Futura, she did a show with Futura, and then she did one representing, let's say, the French scene, and there was Bando in it, Andre was in it, and it was very interesting to be part of her world, because she's very cultivated and very curious. And sometimes I say to myself, I had the chance to be part of the school of Agnes B. You know, that French touch.
Nice.
You know,
so let me
has
ask
a
you
very
something.
open mind. Yeah.
John, so now you're in this whole different world. In Europe and in Paris, it's a renaissance of sorts for the culture, but you're moving forward, and you're moving forward fast. With a little bit of perspective, what was America looking like for you?
I mean, America, let's say, was behind me, and I was expanding my vision to a more the world. You know, I was like, I come from there. You know, I see my life as being very precious. I only have, let's say, a certain amount of time here, so I have more of a global vision. There's places I want to go, places I want to see for myself. So I said to myself, I had already spent 23 years in New York. Let me start exploring, you know. So that exploration is something that still is inside me, to discover and to see different types of people, different cultures, different forms of art. And that's something that I've learned through myself, and having a chance to meet incredible people like Agnes B and people cultivated like yourself.
It's fascinating, right? Your will to adapt, right? You're a Dominican brother, speaks Spanish, and here you are, you adapt a new country and language and become prolific at it, and contribute to it in a really profound way. And one of the things I want us to kind of, you know, your recent book catalogs so much about you and your work and your journey. And I pulled some images that I found really interesting about you. But before I go into this, because one of the things that we see that's really important in this conversation is you in the studio and process, and that you start adopting a process of painting on the floor like Jackson Pollock, and
Yeah.
and that would start showing up in your work. But there are two paintings that I found really interesting that you, in your book, you said were really instrumental to you, and these are them. Could you tell me a little bit about this? These
Um,
works?
yeah, I mean that's something that's very instrumental in the sense that it's like the, let's say, the blazing blends, you know, that blazing blends of the way I'm capable of composing my my colors. And I want to just give a little shout out because, you know, I wouldn't be here doing the things that I'm doing if it wasn't, let's say, for A1. You know, A1 really helped me pave my way and let me, um, he was out here with me for many, many years. And I had the chance to share studios with him and Sharp. And yeah, he was a big part of my life. And he influenced me a lot in what I'm doing. So those type of that painting right there, which is very colorful and very it's mostly that train style that I had, which was those blazing blends, you know, Jazzy John 1. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I find really interesting in this work, John, is not just the color and the energy and the movement, but control, discipline, composition. You know, for as free and wild as they look, you know, somehow they just hold in a very balanced way for me on the canvas. That it's not as arbitrary as one would think.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this comes to in your work, there seems things may look arbitrary, like this one. I think this is Shock 123.
Yeah, that's a
But
Shock one. Yeah, he's an idol of mine, Shock. Yeah.
yeah, but there's a process. Now tell me, I mean, you mentioned Francis earlier, and you obviously Pollock and you know the Expressionists are one influence, but there's something deeper. There's something else, I would imagine, in the work, how you arrive here.
Mm. Definitely. I mean, I come from the best art school in the world, which is the trains, and I had the best, let's say, teachers around me. So when you say balance, the one that taught me about balance was T-Kid 170. I had the chance one day to paint a train with him, and you know, and he did my outline, so I was filling it in, and then he told me, "Yo, man, whatever you do on one side, you gotta do on the other side, B." So that stuck to my head. So thanks, T-Kid, you know. So yeah, I had the chance to be around a lot of amazing people that taught me how to balance a painting out or balance an image that I'm doing, and that energy is what I carry today in my paintings.
And again, one of the things that we've learned about you is that you really flush out ideas. You really exhaust concepts and in the studio, styles of painting, whether it's, you know, the really heavily dripped paintings, the one we're looking at right now. Give me an idea, right? If I'm looking at this and for instance, let's take another, that we really see how much Jackson Pollock's work really made an impression on you.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about making that your own, right? And not hearing the criticism that it's referential to him so much, which I think I'll share this with you, because I've had debates about the quality of work and stuff like that, and my defense for it is that this is the generation that carries those ideas forward because they couldn't be carried no further than his death, right? This is a generation that sees itself in that energy space, in that creative space. But how did you make it your own? How would you answer that?
I mean, I would say that there's no separation between me and my paintings, and that what you're seeing, you know, this composition of colors that I compose myself, is really what I'm living day by day. It's not like I'm doing it and then come night, you know, at nighttime I take off my clothes and I put a suit and tie. I'm really living it every single day, from, you know, from day to night, from everything I'm seeing, everything I'm observing, my faults, my defeats, my wins, my travels, the chance I have to meet the people that I meet, and the opportunities that I've been given to grow as an artist. So it's easy to attach a name or a comparison to an artist, but to live in my shoes, that's a different story.
Exactly. And what's interesting, like I said before, is how you traverse from space to space as you find yourself in your work. And here, with these works that are, I call them your signature works, because it's really about writing. But it's amazing how you took the tag and completely, you know, through repetition, create this really tight abstraction. It's something for us. It's something for people that love abstraction. And, you know, tell me about this. Tell me about repetition and the tag, and that the tag became the art.
Yeah, I mean, it came about a little bit with O'Clock. You know, I don't know if you know about O'Clock. He's a 156 from Paris, and he went berserk, and he just put his name everywhere over Paris, and after a while his name started to represent something. So I said, I had gone to China, and I spent some time in Hong Kong, and I seen that the way Chinese or Arabs, they use calligraphy as a form of art, you know. So I said to myself, me coming from my subway history past, that would be good if I start to use my signature or my calligraphy and make it into art. So that's how the science came, and then the repetition, you know, it's just like, you know, like when you see the panels, and sometimes, you know, you see the, like, mad repetitions of a name, like is the whiz, is.
Yeah,
so
right.
So it became sort of like that kind of influenced me, all the things I had seen as a writer. And I just, you know, I was just into bombing my name.
Listen, the one, you know, this one's quite beautiful because it looks like stained glass.
Yeah, it does. And a lot of people say that. It does look like stained glass. You know, it's my letters, and of course, the colors come out in it. So they're very strong.
So John, you know, as you start experimenting, right, and kind of pushing away from graffiti, traditional graffiti, and then kind of coming back to it in a very different angle, and there are this is a two-part question. What kind of feedback and support were you getting from the graffiti community, or pushback? And what was the embrace of the art world like for you?
I mean, I've always been an outsider, you know. From the beginning, I've been an outsider, so I accept that, you know. I've never really been down with the, you know, I just always been like this freak-a-deek type of guy. A loner, you know. I could compare myself to someone like, let's say, Sane and Smith, you know, or J.A. Somebody, you know, I wasn't like rolling like that, so, and I accept that as who I am, you know. I'm not trying to fit in. I know how the streets work, and, you know, so it doesn't really bother me. So when I do my artwork, or let's say as far as being accepted by, let's say, the graffiti community, I've always known that there is, let's say, the traditionalist, the people that base graffiti in the sense that the letter and the character, and you know, and I respect that, and I admire people that are that follow that tradition, you know. But for me, I didn't get involved with graffiti for those type of purposes. I got involved because I wanted to be free and I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, you know. So I'm not like the system, and I say the system that I come from in the United States. If they wanted to impose something on me and I revolted to, let's say, doing graffiti, I didn't want to find myself in another system where people are telling me what to do. So the graffiti community, there's some people that, yeah, they were or they are against this sort of form of expression that I do, and you know, I'm open to that, doesn't bother me. But then at the same time, I had the opportunity to hang out with artists like with Phase 2 and where Abstraction or Eero and other artists that accepted me because they knew I had bombed the system more than a lot of other people. So, you know, I gained my wins, you know.
You know what, John, thank you for mentioning Phase 2,
Yeah.
especially as we look at this painting. Phase 2 had an incredible impact for the short amount of time he lived on this planet. And he was so advanced in his thoughts about both lettering and abstraction. And these works, this painting is incredible. I'd never seen this before. It's very bold, it's ambitious, really shows you pulling. I mean, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't tie this to graffiti per se, but to pure abstraction. But again, you're very brave, brother. You traverse, again, different languages. And then you have this, I want people to look at this very carefully. This is really important because, I mean, look at the dynamic of all this work, right? And then to end up here where abstraction becomes crystallized, right? It becomes really clear. This series, I don't know the year of this series, but tell me about this. Tell me about starting to paint more graphic.
Well, I wanted to do something where you know, you see my paintings are very splashy, but I wanted to zoom in just zoom in on a big scale what I was basically doing, but then use, let's say, graffiti elements where, you know, like the letters go in and go out and then switch, like what I had seen Ticket doing and I had seen Airborne and Taki doing and Flight, you know. So those are the influences, the FBA style.
Well, what's also interesting to me is that there's this stuff also alludes to sculpture, which you would later produce, right? Mm-hmm. You're playing with space, you're playing with color and space. Really dynamic work.
Thank you. Yeah, and they're really crisp and clean, those pieces right there.
And so the sculpture I'm referring to, we're looking at it now. It's a suspended sculpture. But if I go back, right, it's almost, it completely makes sense that you would go there, right, with these works, because that you have shapes that float in space and interlock with each other. And here we see it in the sculptural form.
Yeah, it was really monumental, that piece. It was 3D, and when people would see it, it was very colorful and very, it was beautiful. I liked it. Yeah.
Right, and this was at the Place de Tokyo, and here's another installation.
No, that wasn't part of the Tokyo. No,
that wasn't.
That was in the south of France. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
This.
Oh yeah, that was in Fondation Cartier, and you know, I wanted
Cartier.
to.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I wanted to the people that see the piece to be able to. It's not flat, but it's three-dimensional. It was very important for me to be three-dimensional with my name in the middle, and then arrows coming on the side, you know. I had the chance to do that with because I work with my friend Mikos in Roubaix in the north of France, and there I have another studio where we work on three-dimensional pieces when the opportunities comes up.
John, tell me about the opportunities of being an artist, of being a successful artist. You know, given your background, given the world you've come from, what does your success mean to you?
I mean, my success is being able to do what I want to do. That is, I'm very successful in that, and I'm very happy with that. You know, I never got into the game to, like, let's say, to possess things. You know, I got into the game with a dream of being able to paint and live my passion for what it is. You know, that's my #1 goal, and that's what it means to be successful and not have to do something else or make concessions to do something else. Because for the most part, a lot of people have to make, let's say, have to face the real world, you know. And I'm able to live and continue living this dreamlike world of the '80s and continue it today in 2021, you know. So, and it's not easy, you know. I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't say it's easy or hard. I would say it's my way of life and it's my way of being. So there's no looking back, or there's no alternatives for me.
So when young artists look at you and ask you for advice and guidance, what's the best answer you can give them?
Well, it's the same thing. I don't know. Do you know Rick Labrizzi? Nemo's father.
Nemo's dad. Yeah.
Yeah, Nemo's father. Yeah, I asked Nemo's father the same thing when I was when I was starting as an artist. I was like, "Yo, Rick, like, how do you do it, Rick? How, you know, like, you know, he had an apartment in Park Avenue, and like, you know, I'm coming from uptown, and I'm like, wow, this is great. So how does it work, Rick? Like, how do you succeed? How do you do it?" And he said to me, "Yo, John, all you gotta do is just paint, and everything else will just work out for itself." And I was like, "But yo, Rick, how am I gonna pay the rent? How am I gonna eat?" He said, "John, all you gotta do is just paint. Everything else will work out for itself." But in fact, what he had told me, you know, it took me a long time to understand, was like the most scariest thing. Was just like, you know, it's like you tell somebody, you know, all you gotta do is jump off a cliff and you'll fly. Don't worry. So that's just what I would say to any artist. All you gotta do is just paint, and everything else will work out for itself, you know. And so, in other words, just like, yeah.
Just work. But also, John, we can't escape the business of art, right? And that what we create is value through our expression. And then that has to be brought out to the world and sold to the marketplace. What challenges, because I know you've been at it for a very long time, you've been burned before, you've put a team around yourself to manage and protect yourself. What could you advise about the business of being an artist?
Well, that's you know, I was talking to somebody about it, and it's I mean, somebody told me that not so long ago, and he said, when you go to an art school, they teach you the techniques of how to paint and how to do things. But in fact, it was Rhyme MSK, he lives out here. And he said something like, yeah, they teach you the techniques, but when you get out of an art school, you become an entrepreneur. You know, so you have to go approach it in that sense that, you know, like, that you're gonna have to be selling your stuff to survive, to eat. You're gonna have to be hustling. You're gonna have to do all, you know, you just can't paint and lock yourself in your house, you know. What I had as a vantage point, you know, I never went to art school, and you know, but I hang out around a lot of hustlers and drug dealers, you know. And sometimes drug dealers and hustlers have the best, let's say, business sense in the game. They know how to work with people, they know how to distribute, they know how to do all that stuff. So in a little sense, those are my examples. Maybe they're bad examples, but hey, it got me this far.
Can't knock the hustle, right?
Yeah.
But here's one of the things that I have to say I really appreciate about you is that you're not precious about it. You just work. And I'm an artist who's rather precious about his work, and that it's hard to let go.
Oh.
And you are just in your zone all the time, and you know that you're serving yourself first, but there'll be plenty to go around.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every artist has their own, let's say, what works for me may not work for you, or what works for, you know, sometimes people tell me, why don't you do like this guy? Or why don't you do like that guy? You know, I'm like, but I'm not that guy. I don't like paste shit. I don't paste things on the wall. We don't have the same history. It's, you know, I don't even do figurative things, you know, I do abstract stuff. So what works for me may not work for other people. And at the end of the game, you just gotta enjoy yourself. So if you like, let's say, not letting go or keeping stuff, you know, it's good, you know, it's you know, but it's not to say I may not do the same thing because it's not really my way, but
Have you managed to keep some of your earlier works?
yeah, I have a lot of stuff. I always keep, you know, I produce, but I hold on. I produce, but I hold on. So I have a lot of stuff saved up.
That's good to hear. And
Yeah.
one of the, you know, one of the outcomes of your prolific output is that your adopted country recognized you, right? They celebrated you. So tell me about this painting that I'm looking at right here, this event.
Oh yeah, that was, I did that for the Assemblée Nationale in France, you know? And from, you know, I went to see the president of the Assemblée Nationale, which is the third most powerful person in France. And he asked me to do something that represents liberty, égalité, et fraternité, you know, brotherhood is fraternité. So I got the chance to do a piece that's still there right now at l'Assemblée Nationale, you know, and it represents a lot to me because coming from where I come from and being able to do something like that, wow, I said to myself, what a trip I took, and it was very beautiful for me because I said to myself, wow, art can take you this far.
Yeah, and even further, I mean, I was like so proud of you when they honored you with the, you know, the honor, the Legion, is it Legionnaire's honor?
Légion d'honneur.
Thank you. My French is terrible.
Yeah, Légion d'honneur. Yeah.
That is a spectacular achievement for a Dominican kid from uptown. It doesn't go unnoticed in the world. What did that feel like, and how did you find out that you were being blessed this way?
Well, I have been doing things like charity work for to help homeless people here in France, because you know, that's something that's I'm very, you know, sensitive to, because whenever I see a homeless person, I say to myself, damn, that could have been me, you know. And I know a lot of friends of mine that are homeless who are struggling today. And so when I get the opportunity to do this thing for this foundation called Fondation Abbé Pierre, I'm always ready to participate. So I had done things and I did other stuff for other causes. So yeah, when I received it, I was really, really proud, you know, that not just for myself, but for everybody that believed in me and everybody that carried me this far. You know, so it was something not for me, but for other people too. You know?
Yeah, John, there was a quote in here, and I felt this the same way. Somebody said, I wish the Dominican community knew more about you.
Yeah.
And I feel that way for myself, for the Puerto Rican community. But when you think about your success and what you represent in the world, especially to us as a culture, but also in terms of your ethnic background, right? Your family heritage. Can you hear me? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Did you hear what I
sorry about
asked?
that. Yeah, as far as being recognized as a Dominican.
Well, it's that there's I'll share this with you. It's kind of, when you won that award, I said to myself, wow, I wonder if this is going to be celebrated in Santo Domingo. Like, will
Yeah.
people know this, right? That one of their own has reached these peaks in life, right? A tremendous honor. Yeah, we're getting a little buffering. All right, there you go. I got you now.
Yeah.
Okay, so your thoughts on that, about your heritage, your connection to connecting your success to your parents, your heritage.
I mean, I'm very Dominican. People sometimes they ask me, "Yo, where you from?" And the first thing I say is, "I'm Dominican," you know. So my
We're having a little buffering issue.
No, I saw it.
Okay, we're back.
Are you still there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. It's
Wait a
just
minute, I gotta get some more battery.
battery.
Damn, I didn't expect we're gonna talk this long. Whoa.
I have a couple more things.
Oh no. So what I'm gonna say is that you still wait a minute. Don't leave me here. Don't leave me there. Okay. There we go.
I'm here.
I got some juice now. No, what I'm gonna say is that, when people tell me, "Yo, where you from? Where you from?" The first thing I say, I'm Dominican, man. So being Dominican is really important for me. I mean, whenever I'm with my moms, I speak in Spanish, and Telemundo and Channel 47, all that. It's really important. So, and one of my dreams, if you're talking about dreams, is one day being recognized by the. You still there? Mayor?
Okay, yeah, it was just buffering.
Mayor?
Yeah, I'm here. It was just buffering. I'm here.
Mayor, where are you, Mayor? Yeah.
I'm here.
Yes, I was saying, I love my plátanos and my. How's that?
I'm here. I'm listening to you.
I love my plátanos and my arroz con pollo and my Dominican people. And one of my dreams, if I have a dream, is one day being able to expose in Dominican Republic. That's a big dream of mine.
That's fantastic. Listen, you mentioned recognition, right? And I'm going to bring it back to Miami. When we, meaning Museum of Graffiti, when Alan Kett and Allison decided to open up this museum, they wanted to celebrate artists of the culture, and you were one of them. You came to Miami, you painted this huge mural, and it's quite interesting if we look at this process, right? As unorthodox as ever, you come in, and what we see you with some type of squeegee tagging your name up, boom, so that everybody sees your name for about a day, right? And then you start embellishing, you start going off and bringing that classic John 1 energy to the neighborhood. What was it like when you heard about a museum specifically for graffiti?
Wow, I said to myself, it's about time, you know, and I was really surprised. I was really surprised, Mayor, that it was done by you, Allison, and Ket, because it's always done by, let's say, outsiders, you know? It's always outsiders telling the story of our culture, you know? And by doing that, it's always mixed up or diffused, or it's, you know, it's something, it never really works out. It's always whitewashed a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I heard, I was saying to myself, how do they do it? Who's paying for this? How do they get the money to do that? Damn, Cat's rich. Fuck. So like, and then when I seen what you guys had done, man, I was like, yo. And I said to myself, what better ambassadors to do it than you guys, you know? Because graffiti is so politically, it's like, you know, everybody hates each other. There's so much wars. There's like, you know, who else can put everybody together under the same platform than you three? And I admire you guys for that, you know, to put your egos aside and and sort of like the way you represented Mayor is amazing, because you're an intellectual, and you put words into what sometimes we're not capable of saying and expressing ourselves. So we need you. We not only need you for your art, but we need you for what you do. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, you know, the museum was a dream of Alan for a long time and labor of love, but I'll just go back and say that it was a community effort, right, that helps realize this. Writers like yourself who felt the same way, you know, they brought me on in various capacity. And of course, I put my practice down, but the mission, I believe in the mission, right, in terms of artists advocating for artists. You know, also there's a learning process for me, right? I'm looking at a picture of you painting the interior of the museum, and I remember spending time behind you very silently, looking at you, looking at the artists at work, looking at the process, the discipline, and pulling so much from this, and that it allowed me to find meaning in your process, your work, you as an artist, so that I can relay that to people, right? So that I can talk to them with great pride about the painful process, the focus, the reason why, what it is that they're looking at, why is it important, why is it in the museum, and what does he represent? And this was kind of a milestone, right? About that writing, you know, to look at writing this way that just kind of weaves itself into abstraction. And people, I think you have to look at this photo carefully, because, I mean, look at that tiny brush.
It's crazy. It's like touching insanity when you paint with that brush. It's just like crazy. But I wanted to put a lot of energy. I wanted to put that energy and that insanity and that sort of like, you know, I wanted to bring what I had been doing in Europe and give a taste of it to people in Miami. Mm-hmm.
But it's something that you've taken across the world with you in your journeys, right? I believe this mural.
In Senegal.
Yeah. In Senegal, right?
That was crazy. That was crazy world.
What a phenomenal journey. Tell us about this project, and actually, I know you've traveled to Africa before, but now you're doing this tremendous production.
Yeah, I mean, I have the chance to be able to work in Africa more and more, and because I really believe Africa is the future. It's like there's a lot of creative artists there, and there's so much to do there. So I had the chance to go to Senegal and have a show at the Museum of Civilisation Noire, and there they had a big wall So I wanted to, I did the flag of Senegal, more or less like that. Yeah, so it was a big mission. I did it in like two days. I had 2 days to do it. Yeah, it's beautiful
Phenomenal.
Africa.
So, so John, I want to transition um, uh, to your commercial
Yeah,
work, right? The success of your commercial work and just how impressive it is. And um, I'm telling you, I saw this painting, and I'm like, yeah, it's time to cake up for your talents, right? And you've worked with
yeah,
Perrier, which is super cool
yeah.
branding. And so, as a fine artist, as a you know, I don't know if you remember back in the day, you know, in the '80s, the art market looked down on artists like Keith Haring and others that were uh, kind of collaborating with brands, you know, and extending out into the commercial space with their art. And now it seems kind of normal. Uh, but these opportunities you get are quite
Yeah.
fabulous. Uh, Tell me about working with the fashion house Guerlain. This is a
Yeah.
beautiful project.
Well, I've had the opportunity. I mean, I don't work with every single brand that comes up to me. I only work with a couple of them that I feel that they have some sort of relationship with art and artists, you know, and then I'm not just trying to like use the credibility of, let's say, the streets to sort of like, you know, it's just like a cop and go type of deal, you know, that they're willing to continue working with artists. So, yeah, I've had the chance to work to do a Hennessy bottle and Guerlain, and you know when you do it,
Right. We're looking at the
yeah,
Hennessy now and special packaging with the
yeah.
paint
I mean,
bucket.
when you do a collaboration, it's like win-win. You know, you have to sort of you know, you have to put their logo sometimes and things like that. And so they have to feel like they get something from it, and you have to feel like you get something from it. And today, nowadays, the times have changed, and artists use work with these brands to get their names around. Mhm.
So I used to say sky's
Yeah,
the
Bill
limit.
Blass. Shout out to Bill
And
Blass.
looking, yeah, but looking at you, the sky is not the limit. You take
Yeah,
to the skies. This is
yeah. It was.
crazy. Tell us about the Air France John 1
Oh
plane.
yeah, that was a crazy one because you know,
Talk
I
about
never
getting
thought it
up.
would be possible, Mayor, to do something like that. And it just happened to be a simple conversation with somebody from Air France, and you know, they said, and I said, yeah, it'll be crazy if I do a plane one day, and I had proposed things, but it didn't really work out, and um, and then one day, you know, they were like, yeah, let's do this, let's do the plane, and yeah, I was able to do that plane with them. I think it's still flying today, you know. Yeah, so it's like I painted a
That's
train, I
such an
painted a
incredible.
plane. Wow. I can die now and go to heaven.
Well, you're getting closer, man, on a
Yeah,
plane. I mean, it's phenomenal. I think it's quite the
yeah.
achievement, John.
Thank you, man.
All right. So listen, you know, as of recent, right, you keep making
Yeah,
headlines. And we're going to travel. We're going to take this plane over
yeah,
to Korea to your
yeah,
project there. And it, it, it's it's quite interesting and fascinating, the story behind it, and unfortunate, of course, that somebody decided they wanted to participate
yeah,
in the painting. But it's almost as if you set it up for that, right? For not for
yeah.
their act, right? But it's almost this invitation. You can't help but like have this urge,
I
I
mean,
think.
yeah, the reason the paint was on the floor is because, like, I do performances, and you know, where you know, you see me actually doing one of my works, and so that was a performance I did in Korea, and the Koreans, they enjoyed the performance so much that they wanted to leave, you know, the setting as is, you know, with the paint on the floor and the brushes, you know, because it's like people experiencing how it is inside my studio is different than seeing it in a gallery. So we wanted to give that experience to people, and leaving the brushes on the floor and just like the way it's trashed it is. And yeah, then some couple went there and they toyed me, man. They toyed me, man. Yeah, man.
It's
Yeah,
incredible. But in hindsight, as you look, see, we're looking
yeah,
at the damage, right? Is that the full extent of the
yeah.
damage?
I think they wrote something on, I don't know what they did, but yeah. Some people say it looks better now.
So basically,
Yeah,
they capped you. So I mean, but again, it shows, John, how you know how attractive your work is to people, right? This engagement, this kind of, again, there was a setup that was provocative to inspire somebody to paint on your pieces, but it's almost, it reminded me a little bit of going to the layup,
hmm, yeah,
right? And you see something, you say, oh, I want to be on this little
yeah.
spot right here.
But at the same
uh,
time, Mayor, me
and
being an abstract artist, and there's a lot of splashes everywhere, that's one of the things that people say, oh, but I can do that, or they don't really appreciate abstract art as much as if it was to be figurative. So it's a nonstop battle. It's like what you told me about how does the graffiti community perceive me. Some, you know, some of my peers that I've hung out with, like Core and Sharp and other abstractionists like myself, they're more easily able to appreciate. But some people that are just do straight up figures, they may not get it the same way. So yeah.
so what are we looking forward to, you know, with you? I mean, how did COVID affect you and your work during this period?
Well, I've been living COVID. I've been living COVID all my life. You know, as far as lockdowns and you know, basically I have a very simple life where I just like go to my house, studio, go to my house, studio. So as far as my social life, it's not really affected. The only thing is affected a little bit is that I travel a little bit less. And no, but everything, thank God, everything's okay for me. You know, I'm blessed, and I continue to paint. I continue to be creative, and you know, I'm just curious how things will be like after this. You know, we're embracing 2020, and
Yeah,
you know, it'll definitely be something else coming up. You know?
yeah. I think this period has made a lot of us look
Mm-hmm.
inward, and deal with our demons, and also deal with society, right? The society we help create,
What
that we're a
about for you,
part of.
Mayor? How's
I
it
think
going for you? What are you
um,
doing?
it's been a
How's the
challenge.
challenge?
It's been a challenge. I openly talk about adult depression and the kind of psychological changes that this period has pushed me towards. But it also, I think, brought me this, right? It brought me to the museum. It brought us focus to, for me, in my work, to uh, focus on having conversations with artists like yourself, right? And to dig a little deeper. I mean, I've been doing this all my life, but it's different now in this period. My curiosity deepens every time I talk to artists of the culture. And, it, you know, again, some people are just straight graffiti, some others are studio artists and so on. And it helps me reflect on my journey and the journey that we share, right? And as you talk and you share your story, it triggers very special memories for me about a time and place. But it also, I think, helps reinforce purpose,
Yeah.
right? If this is part of the purpose, it's not just being the artist, but also being of service. And that's something that you practice in your life, right? That's, yeah, you have the studio time, but you give back to the community. That's a holistic life, a satisfying life. Um, you know, given your success and your notoriety, right? Some artists would take that and run that and become celebrities, right? They become, you know, their name becomes bigger than their art, right? And in your case, it seems like you really honed in, and you know yourself, you know your practice, you're committed to it, and that's your purpose. You've embraced your purpose. And so in this period, there's no better period than isolation for the artist, right? Because that's where you find mastery, in isolation. And so when I think about this period and the gifts and the trade-offs, I feel very blessed and lucky. In fact, I'm off to Hawaii tomorrow, and I'll be giving a talk out there. I'll be out there for powwow and amongst artists, right? Amongst the tribe. And so the thing that I think we both agree on is how we find ourselves in the world and the tribe. In fact, you and I found ourselves in Marrakesh, which was amazing, right? I think that part of it, right? When you think about two ghetto kids finding themselves later in life on the other side of the world, on the premise of their art, right? Of their name, of who they've become. I think that itself is an indicator of the power of the spirit, the mind, the creative soul, but also of a culture, right? The graffiti culture, or the artistic culture in this case, but more importantly, the graffiti culture, because that's what ties us together.
Definitely.
And I treasure that. I think that's really important in my life. And so COVID taking that away, although I was at the museum and put down studio practice and my ambitions to bring my work to the world, it made me rethink it as to, why are you an artist in the first place? What are you trying to do? And so that I clearly defined that for myself, but also learned from all the other artists that I've been talking to. You know, there's many ways to skin this cat, so to speak. But that said, we have to look ahead, right? So what should we look for ahead for you? What should we be excited about?
As far as what's coming up for me next, well, of course I'm going to be doing shows. I'm going all over the place, traveling. You know, I don't know, but
I'll tell you what I would love to see from you, John.
What's that?
Even if it's this small, because this really fascinates me about you. Writing about color.
Writing about it?
Yes, your thoughts on color, on color use, because there is something in everything that I've seen, right? That is a transformational leap in how color is used in contemporary art. And one of the things that people don't give enough credit to, especially for the graffiti artists, is color theory, right? The use of color, and all that provides, for not just for the picture, but for the viewer. And there's something in you in that regard that I think is quite special and you know, worth investigating.
You're right about that. I should start writing my thoughts about colors, because it's something very important for me in my life, colors. And I have a certain way of composing colors that I think nobody else can do, you know. Because I see some people try, but it always comes out flat, you know. So yeah. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a very animated life, you know. I saw the interview you did with Seekos, which is very good. He's my road buddy next door. He shares studio.
Nice.
All right, I'll tell him. Hello. He goes to the catacombs now and then.
I'm completely fascinated. You know, that I'll share. We'll wrap this up, but I'll share this with you. that, you know, the artists that I've talked to from Europe often bring you up and how important you were, your presence there was. And Seiko's also discusses this, the importance of that, of showing up. And you mentioned this earlier about like the American jazz artists going to Paris, right? And in that framework, you represent that in you and some of the guys that were out there in Europe early, but you stayed. And you stayed and you had a tremendous impact on people, right? Your legacy, you know, while you are a prolific painter, I think the people you touch will really be what speaks volumes of your legacy. And when you hear other artists talk about other artists, particularly, like I said, about Sarkozy and your impact on Paris, again, it goes to that really highly unlikely story about a kid from the hood who does good.
Very rare.
Really good.
Yeah, because most of our peers are a lot of, not most, but a lot of our peers are not struggling, but either dead, struggling, and coming out of a struggle. It's hard. Life is hard, and we're lucky enough to be enjoying, not enjoying, but living our passion.
Yeah, but it's the work, right? And if there's anything to take away from this and this conversation with you, is the amount of work, faith, commitment, relentless. You are relentless. You are truly a boxer in the ring.
That's true. As long as I got the
so with that, John, with that, John, on behalf of the museum, our crew, our staff, we really love you, man. We thank you so much for supporting us. We thank you for being you, unapologetically, and doing you and doing the work. And also that you are one of the finest examples representing us Latinos, us graffiti artists, us painters and sculptors that, you know, you.
All right. Thank you too, my brother. Thank you for being Mayor 139. You know, you were a big influence to me too, man. You and your whole crew, man. You stay prolific. Thanks to you guys.
I appreciate that.
And say what's up to Kat and Allison.
I definitely, I'm sure they're probably listening. But if not, I'm sure they'll catch it. And again, John, I either will see you in America or I'll see you in Europe or Marrakesh again. You know, it's one of my favorite places.
Okay.
I'll find you.
I'm around. Peace,
Un abrazo. Cuídate.
Okay. You too.
Take care.